So my main motivation behind making this video is, frankly, because I hate sanding. Shocking, I know, in the woodworking world this is a bit of a hot take, but frankly, it's how I feel, and I am sick of living this lie. So why make a cutting board YouTube video if you hate sanding, you might ask? Well, making cutting boards is about 95% sanding in my experience. So what better opportunity than this to evangelize what I consider to be the unsung hero of the small wood shop, the card scraper or the cabinet scraper, and just sort of showcase my process for making a cutting board and how I incorporate the cabinet scraper to great effect to cut down hours of sanding down to maybe 30 minutes or so, give or take, if you're batching out like 3 or 4 boards. A lot of the content that I see on YouTube surrounding cutting board making are geared more towards, large cutting board shops where their whole business model is sending out, hundreds of cutting boards every holiday season, and that's awesome. But at the same time, for people that are making 5 or 10 or, just building small one-off projects, can really utilize the card scraper as like a effective alternative to working your way up through the grits. Scrapers are capable of putting finishes, from 800 to 1,000 grit equivalent. So I usually do a round of card scraping and then kind of bring it back down to a single round of 320 sandpaper for the finish. And then the usual spray to raise the grain, and then one more sanding round. Don't worry, my shop is not on fire. That is simply a massive hole in my shop vac that is spewing sawdust all over my workshop. But fear not, I am wearing a respirator. Mom. Here is the obligatory before and after planer glue squeeze out shot. Much better. Just like I would when I'm sanding, I like to mark up the surface of the board. Just like to make sure that you can see exactly what you've gone over, what you have left to scrape or sand. Even once you've run your board through a planer, there's still going to be some imperfections on the board as well as machine marks. You can kind of see where the blades, especially if you don't have a helical head, you can really see where the blades have dug into the wood, and the card scraper really makes short work of those. So the real difference between the scraper and the sander is that a scraper is basically a burr that you've bent over the edge of a metal card, hence the card scraper name. It's scraping shavings off of a board. So while a sander is kind of pressing down the fibers, the card scraper is actually slicing those and kind of cutting them off almost like a planer would. The scraper is going to get dull after a while. You'll notice that it's producing sawdust, basically, instead of shavings. So you just take a burnisher and you can kind of rehone it, just kind of by flattening out the top and then curving that burr back over in the direction that you want it so that you can continue making shavings. I feel like a lot of people see things like a burnishing tool and they're kind of like, oh, well, that's more than I really want to know how to do, or a tool that I'm really not interested in learning how to use. But really, honestly, it's a lot simpler than you might think it is. I feel like a lot of the tutorials that I've seen on the process of sharpening card scrapers on YouTube really overcomplicate what's needed to maintain a sharp edge on one of these things. So let me know if you're interested, and I'll put a tutorial video out there just with my process that is start to finish 3 minutes, and you're back building your project rather than maintaining sharp tools. For dealing with the edges of these cutting boards, I like to just put a really simple chamfered profile just with a block plane on there. I think this is pretty minimal and clean, makes it a little easier to pick up, but doesn't make it feel soft like a rounded over edge. This is what that kind of turns into. So at the very least, I hope that I've convinced at least a couple people to give a card scraper a shot. I think it is super lightweight, super easy to maintain, and honestly just really satisfying to work with. So if you're still here at this point, thanks for sticking around. If you have any questions, leave them below. And hopefully you found this mildly interesting or educational. See you in the next one.